Hello and welcome to Bradio Software Development. My name is Brad, and today we're going to be carrying on with our microservices mini-series. So in the last part, we set up RabbitMQ and we created 3 apps within our Nest.js project, and we connected up to the RabbitMQ Docker. Now today we're going to be talking about events. So with events, we can push data and we can listen to data on certain events on a queue, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So without further ado, let's get straight into the terminals. Okay, so I just thought I'd do a quick recap of our last session. So I did promise that I would make the text a little bit bigger. So I've made the terminal size 16 and I've also made Visual Studio Code size 16. But everything else is still the same resolution because I can't figure out how to change the resolution of the monitor. It won't let me change it. So, but that's okay. So what I'm also going to do when I edit this video is I'm going to put an A, a B, a C, and a D. And that will show you which microservice it is. D will be the one that hasn't got a letter assigned to it, which is this one here. Okay, so if you remember in the last video, we made microservice A, B, and C, and then we had this fourth one here. Now, what we're going to do before we do anything is we're going to turn this microservice into kind of like a test publish kind of service. But imagine there's another microservice down here called microservice D, and that would be our test service, so we can just hit the browser endpoint and test payloads. But what we'll eventually do is actually have B running on some kind of cron job, where it will just loop every hour and go and fetch new data and see what's changed. So for now, we haven't actually got a microservice D, but what we can do is copy this and just change it to test service, and we're not going to call it microservice because technically it's not actually a microservice. Up to the box. Yeah, so that looks about right. Yeah, so we've got the test service is actually pushing messages onto RabbitMQ, because if you look at the arrow direction, microservice A and C are reading it off RabbitMQ, and microservice B is pushing it onto RabbitMQ. So what we're going to do is we actually rewrote the main.ts file to listen to the microservices. But we don't actually have to do that because we don't really need this as a microservice. It wasn't in our design plan, and we can literally just use this just to ping events. So rather than having like Postman or Insomnia or some kind of curl request, we can literally just run a web page, hit refresh, and it will publish an event onto our queue for us. So the first thing we need to do is go to the Nest documentation, and we need to find the old code that was there before. So if we go up to first steps on the left hand side, and we look here, we can see the initial function. So we're just going to go copy all of this in main.ts, go back to Visual Studio Code and paste it over the main.ts file in the non-lettered microservice. So we're just going to paste that. There we go. And a way to test this is if we go to our terminal and go to window D and type in npm run start dev. If you don't provide it another command after the dev part, it will just load up the standard microservice folder or app. So this should now work. Cool. And now we go to our browser and we go to localhost 3000. It will say hello world. We can test that this is working as well by going to our app controller, our app service, and we can just change that to a 2 at the end. Then we can see that's reloaded. And if we go back to our browser and refresh, we'll see a 2 at the end. So now we know that's working. The next thing to do is actually connect this up, connect the controller up to our microservices. So if we open up the documentation on Nest again, and on the left-hand side under microservices, if we click RabbitMQ, yeah, so if you look here, you can see that it says the client at the top. So this will go into our client service, which is the microservice without a letter. So if we copy everything inside the imports array, make sure to copy up to here, so this little square bracket and circular bracket. And if we go to our module in our non-lettered microservice, we'll just create a break line on there on imports and paste that in. And remember to import all of your modules as well. So if we go to quick fix, and then there's import microservices, and we'll also need to import the transport export as well, so make sure you click that. Remember this, we changed this to mailbox in the last session, so change queue on line 14 to mailbox, and that should be it. Oh, and also, okay, so, and as you can see here, we've got math service. Now we can actually have multiple clients listening to different services. What we could actually do is have like an animal service and a country service. And in fact, yeah, let's do that. So let's do animal service, just to keep it in line with the graphic that we had. So just to be clever, what we'll do is copy everything between lines 9 and 19 and paste, and then we'll call this country service or countries underscore service. That's what we want. And make sure the queue is the same and localhost and 5672. What we could do is actually create constants at the top of this file for mailbox and the AMQP port, but we don't need to do it for the purpose of this. So now if we save it and head over to our window, we can see that it's compiling fine. Okay, so if we go back to our RabbitMQ URL, and if you remember, it's localhost 8080 and the username and password is guest. If we now go back to our code once we've logged in, and make sure you're on this queues tab here, because what we can do is go to queues, then click mailbox, and we just need to watch this window here. So this will give us a graph of all the messages that have gone onto the RabbitMQ. So if we go back to our code, okay, so what we want to do is go to our app service, and we need to create a new constructor. So there's no code for this on the Nest.js documentation, which is a bit annoying, but that's fine. I know it now. So if we go to constructor, just put in 2 forward slashes. So in the constructor, we need to type in at inject. Yep, and we need to type in animal service, and then we need to make it private read only, and we'll give it the parameter client, and we will give it a type of client proxy. There we go, and if you press enter, it'll automatically import everything up there. Okay, and then in our get hello method, what we can do is simply comment this out and create remove this string part as well, because we won't be returning anything, we'll just be returning void. And here we need, we also need to turn it into an async function. So put async before the function name, and then on line 13 we do await this dot client dot emit. So the event, that the pattern is the name of the event. So if we type in, let's say for example, animal updated, and then we'll do a payload of data, and then we'll just give it an array, and we'll put in a string called rabbit. So we'll say, oh sorry, let's change that to created. Actually, that makes more sense. So change that to animal created. Give it a data of rabbit, which is a string array. So what we'll do is we'll pick this up on the other service, and then we can log the animals that we want to create on the service. So now that we've made a way of, oh sorry, it looks like we've got an error. What is our error? It's not assignable to type string. Okay, but we have just changed it. So maybe in our controller we're expecting strings still. Yes, we are. So we'll just take away that. So all of your types have to go all the way up from the lowest point down on what you're expecting it to return. So we're just taking away string. We don't need that for now anyway. So the next thing we need to do is actually connect microservice A. Actually, is it microservice A? I've forgotten what it was on our diagram. Yeah, so microservice A will be in charge of animals. Sorry, no. Yeah, so actually we need to do it on microservice B, because our microservice B is in charge of getting data and then sending it onto the bus. So what this will do is actually fire an animals created event with the animals array of rabbit, wolf, or bird, and then microservice A will pick it up. So we've kind of done this in a different way just because we're testing it in a minute, but imagine there's another microservice down here called microservice D, and that would be our test service, so we can just hit the browser endpoint and test payloads. But what we'll eventually do is actually have B running on some kind of cron job, where it will just loop every hour and go and fetch new data and see what's changed. And we have all this set up, so we have our mailbox queue and we're listening, and now we need to go to our service. And now this is where the fun stuff happens. So now if you go back to the documentation, sorry, I know I'm jumping around, but that's just the nature of these videos. And if we scroll down a little bit more under the RabbitMQ section, we can see that we have a message pattern, but if you scroll down a bit further, we should have event pattern as well, or maybe it's up. Okay, that's fine. So we'll just try it with the message pattern for now and see if that works. So we just copy all of this, and then don't comment this out because it might break some stuff. So we'll just create a new function under here. We'll format that out. Okay, and then make sure you import the message pattern from microservices, and import everything else as well. Sometimes it doesn't add everything in one go. There we go. It's not word wrapping, that's okay. So we've got notifications here, but we need to change that to animal created, or animals created with an S. So if you look back here on our test service, we can see that we have animal service, animal created, and then on our microservice B in the service, we have animals created. So now this should pick up all of the animals created events. So the next thing we need to do is actually test this. So we're only using microservice B right now, and I've said that this window here is going to be B. So we won't bother running A and C for now, so we'll just run B. So we do npm run start dev, and then microservice B. There's a bit of a delay on my laptop because I'm using VNC to use it. So yeah, we want to do microservice -B, and then hopefully this works with no errors. There we go, so now we're listening. So now if we go to our RabbitMQ test page, and we'll make this a bit smaller so we can see the terminal window with it. And if we hit refresh, we should see something in terminal B. There is no matching event handler defined in the remote service event pattern animal created. That's fine, that's exactly what I thought. So if we go back to Visual Studio Code, this message pattern actually needs to be event pattern. So if you change it to event pattern and press enter to import, and then it's always good practice to remove your unused imports. So if it's light grey up here, just make sure you delete it. It's nice to do a bit of code cleanup every now and again. So let's try this again. Go back to our test page and hit refresh. And we've got the same error. There is no matching event handler defined in a remote service event pattern animal created. Okay, what is going on here? Oh, sorry, yeah, so earlier I said it was animals created, but it's actually animal created. So we can do this one of two ways. We can change this to animal, or we can change the test service to animals with an S. Because there could be more than one animal being updated in the array, I think we should call it animals with an S. Plurals and singulars are very, very important when you're doing web development, you know, if it's case sensitive. So we've now changed it to animals created, so now this should work. If we go back to our browser, open up our terminal on the right hand side, hit refresh, and we've got the same error. Let's have a look. I thought that would be it, but apparently not. Okay, so I've been debugging this error. Basically, for some reason, the message is being sent on the queue, as we can see here. So we can see this graph here on the RabbitMQ admin. We can see that the messages are actually on the mailbox. We currently have one stuck that hasn't been read because I closed the server. So they're definitely being sent onto the queue. What I'm wondering is whether I've been messing around a bit over the past half an hour trying to get this working, but I'm trying to figure out why it thinks that there's no matching event handler. So I found out a pretty cool way of inspecting RabbitMQ messages. So this only works if they're still in the queue. So if they've been delivered and failed, and there's no durability for it, or there's no replay for it, then it will just disappear into the abyss. But because we cancelled the server and we can see there's one message, we can do this. So if you open up Docker dashboard, go to your RabbitMQ container and click on this button up here, which says CLI. And then you can type in the command, I think it's RabbitMQ admin get q. Actually, no, I think we can just type get and might get all of them. Okay, so we need to type in Q as well. So we can do RabbitMQ admin get Q equals mailbox, and it will show us our payload. So if we look here, we're getting the routing key mailbox, 0 message count, which is weird. We've got a payload pattern XXX. I've changed it from animals created just because I was debugging. And also we've got the data AAA, which is actually right. And we've got redelivered true. So if we actually turn on our microservice, it will actually pick up that message instantaneously once it reads off the queue and starts up. And then we get this error here, which is what we were getting before. And now if we type in this again, but what I can do is I can copy that and paste it. And you can see we've got no items because the item has been picked up on a microservice. So my next debugging point of call is to try and figure out why the event decorator isn't working. So if we go to Visual Studio Code and we go to our microservice B, I've moved everything out of the service and put everything into the controller to eliminate a layer of abstraction in case there's a bug there somewhere, but it doesn't seem like there is. We've got event pattern XXX. It's not picking it up, and I've got the event pattern here, and I've got data string, console log data, and it's just not picking it up at all, and I have no idea why. So I'm going to go away for another 15 minutes, see if I can debug it, and then I'll get back to you. I have one thing to do. I've been looking at this for the past half an hour. I've wasted, actually no, more than that. 45 minutes of my night has been completely wasted. That actually hurt a little bit. But the reason why this is not working is because on line 3, if you notice, we're linking the app module to the wrong folder. It's because it's not called app module, it's called microservice B module. Man, I love and I hate debugging. So it's really fun when you work out a problem, but it's really annoying getting to the point where you've solved it. So if we go to our main TS and we put in microservice B module, this is going to work. So wait for it to pick up on the import that and save it. Now this should all load back up again and listen. I can't believe this is it. And it's picking up. It's picking everything up. That's so stupid. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make sure that I modify service A and service C with this new change, because I do not want to get stuck there again. Okay, so now that debugging issue is over, I've now basically gone through all of the code and I've cleaned everything up to back how it was before I started debugging. So if you see here on line 10 in microservice B, on the microservice B service, we have animals created as an event name. I have noticed a couple of things that's wrong with this. So the first parameter is data number, but we're actually passing through an array of strings, so we're going to change that to string. We're also not logging the actual data that comes back. So what we can do is just duplicate this line 12, and put in data, and then we'll just literally log data in there. Here we go. So then we can log some data and the pattern. And also the other thing that we need to do is, I think that's everything. Right, okay, so yeah, I think that's everything. So we've got So just to recap, we've got microservice B, and we're reading off the event pattern animals created, and we have microservices, our test service, and we've got app.service.ts, and we're emitting the animals created event with a payload of an array of strings with the animal names. So let's go back to our localhost 3000 URL, hit refresh, and then we're getting the same problem again. Okay, I think you have to have event patterns in your controller, so we're just going to take it out of service, and we're going to put it underneath this get function here in our controller instead. And then also make sure that you've imported the relevant decorators and types. So I've already done that in this file, but you know, hover our mouse over the squiggly line and click quick fix, and then you can import everything. So let's try that again. Go to our browser, localhost 3000, hit refresh, and there we go. We've got data object and pattern animals created. Now, if you wanted to see the innards of this data object, what we can do is wrap it in a JSON.stringify and put in data there, save it, and then hit our localhost endpoint again, and then as you can see, we have data rabbit. So that's it for this tutorial. Sorry that I took a route of debugging, but the reason why I like to post debugging steps and not do it completely from start to finish is I really want to show people what programming's about, and you actually spend probably about 80% of your actual programming time debugging or reading other people's work. So I think it's really important to show people that not everything is like all roses. You do get problems every now and again, and I love to show that to you because it does happen, and I don't want people to feel like they're a rubbish developer if it happens to them, because it's not about the, it sounds really cliche, but it's not about the end result, it's about the journey getting to the result. It's all about how your mind understands problems and gets to the end point. So it's really important that you realize that. So thanks for watching. I'm sorry it was a bit longer than expected because we did have a couple of problems, but we've successfully managed to get events working. So what we're going to be doing in the next video is actually getting everything working end to end. So we're going to set up some kind of cron job or some kind of loop to get all of the data from two data sources that will make up as we go along in microservice B, and then that will then publish the data onto the queue, and then we'll look at actually storing that information on microservice A and microservice C in their own data stores. So you'll be able to see the flow of the data from one end of the system to the other. I think that'll be really, really useful for people to do. And we'll also take a look at how you might update data on an event bus. So thanks for watching, and remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video. See you later.